The sun over Dravagan 9 was tinted orange from the thick clouds of dust that never settled. As the war drums echoed across the broken plains, a single man stood still, his shadow long and defiant against the chaos around him. His armor was scarred, his muscles covered in blood that wasn't his. He had no name in the system anymore, just a code, AX9, the mercenary from Earth, feared by some, hunted by others. Zarian, the green-skinned queen of the Smolder Fang Syndicate, watched him through a hollow feed. Her black eyes shimmered with admiration and rage. She had once offered him a fortune to kill a rival warlord, but he had turned her down with a smirk and walked away alive. No one did that and lived. That made him dangerous. That made him interesting. On the other side of the galaxy, in a crimson palace floating above a lava sea, Queen Velkara of the Ember Blades leaned back on her throne made of bones. She replayed footage of the same man crushing one of her assassins with his bare hands. Instead of anger, she smiled. No man had ever impressed her. Not until now. She whispered to her second-in-command to find him, not to kill, but to bring him alive. The galaxy was in turmoil, and it seemed everyone wanted something from the human. But he wanted nothing but freedom. War had taken everything from him, his family, his planet, and his soul. Yet the fire in his chest still burned, and the only way to survive was to keep moving forward. His latest mission was supposed to be simple: escort a trade convoy through pirate space. But when the ship exploded mid-flight, and his escape pod crash-landed in an unknown desert, he knew someone had set him up. The sand was coarse and dark, like powdered obsidian. The heat was unbearable, but it was the growls in the distance that truly worried him. He scavenged parts from the wreckage and crafted a crude energy spear. Whatever was coming for him wasn't human, and it wasn't going to wait. Within minutes, 3 hulking beasts with 4 arms each leapt from the dunes. They were covered in black scales, and their jaws split sideways. He fought like a demon, leaping, rolling, slashing until the desert was still again, and only he was left standing. But someone had been watching. A sleek silver drone hovered silently in the sky above the scene. It zoomed in on the man, bloodied and breathing heavy, surrounded by corpses. The drone transmitted the footage back to 2 different locations, Zarian's jungle city and Velkara's molten fortress. Both queens received the same data at the same time, and both clenched their fists. To them, he was no longer just a mercenary. He was a weapon, a symbol, a prize. And they would not share. Far above the planet, 2 ships began entering orbit. One was carved from black stone, covered in green vines and glowing runes, the vessel of the Smolder Fang Syndicate. The other was a sleek crimson beast, armed with plasma spikes and volcanic tech, the warship of the Ember Blades. Both ships sent teams to the surface to retrieve the same man. AX9 heard the incoming roar of dropships before he even saw them. He ran toward the cliffs, knowing he was being hunted. But he didn't know who they were or what they wanted. All he knew was that he had survived worse. And if they wanted to capture him, they'd have to bleed for it. Behind him, smoke rose from the desert. Ahead, strange mountains curved like knives into the sky. He chose the sharpest path, the one most wouldn't take. Because if he was going to survive what was coming, he needed to stay unpredictable, unknown, and unstoppable. The sun beat down harder than before as AX9 climbed the jagged cliffs. Every muscle in his body burned from dehydration and injury. But pain was normal. Pain was part of life for someone born on Earth's war-torn zones. It meant he was still alive. As he reached the summit, he crouched low, scanning the desert behind him. A black dropship hovered in the sky, cutting through the heat haze like a predator bird. Its engines roared, then quieted. He knew the hunt was beginning. But he also knew something they didn't. He wasn't the prey. From the rock ledge, he spotted 3 figures in sleek jungle green armor advancing toward the wreck. Their helmets had glowing lenses, and their weapons looked custom-made for fast, silent kills. Smolder Fang assassins. Zarian's style, quick and precise. He would have admired them if they weren't here for him. He slipped away into the mountain pass and moved like a ghost. The terrain was sharp and unpredictable, just like the planet itself. One wrong step could end in a fall or trigger an ancient explosive from the last war that ravaged the surface. He remembered the briefing on this world. It was declared cursed and abandoned for a reason. Just beyond the rocks, he stumbled upon an old bunker. Half buried in sand, its entrance blinked red. That meant someone had accessed it recently. He checked the perimeter and found fresh prints due light steps. One. Heavy, that pattern belonged to Ember Blades. Velkara's elite scouts were already inside. He entered the bunker quietly, weapon raised. The halls were rusted, the air thick with decay. But inside was power. Lights flickered on as his steps echoed down the hall. He passed torn banners with forgotten symbols and reached a control room where a red-skinned alien woman stood alone. She was young, maybe early 20s in appearance, but her posture screamed training. Her armor was tight but modest, with etched lava patterns glowing along the arms. She looked over her shoulder and smirked when she saw him. No fear, only challenge. "You're fast," she said, her voice smooth and sharp. "But not fast enough to escape the Ember Blades." Her eyes glowed faintly as she raised her blaster, but she didn't fire. Instead, she tilted her head and added, "The Queen wants you alive." For now, he didn't move. He watched her every step, every breath. She was stalling, and he knew why. A second figure leapt from the shadows, a green-skinned woman with dreadlocks and twin blades curved like fangs. Her tattoos pulsed with energy as she struck without a word. AX-9 ducked under her swing and kicked her back. He caught the blaster-wielding girl's wrist and disarmed her. Both attackers recovered fast, but he moved faster. Years of deathworld survival had taught him to never hesitate. In less than 30 seconds, both were pinned and disarmed. They groaned under his grip, but he didn't apply more pressure. Instead, he looked into their eyes and saw something strange. Neither was here to kill. They weren't even angry. They were measuring him, testing him. It wasn't a bounty hunt. It was a recruitment. Suddenly, both girls began to laugh. The red-skinned one wiped blood from her mouth and said, "You passed, just like the Queen said you would." The green one nodded and added, "Now the real choice begins. Who will you stand with?" Outside, the rumble of more ships filled the air. The mountain shook as drop pods smashed into the ground. It wasn't just two queens anymore. Other syndicates had joined the race. The galaxy had seen the footage. They all wanted the human who killed monsters with a stick and survived the deadliest desert known to pirates. He backed away, realizing he was no longer a mercenary running from contracts. He was now the center of something much bigger. A war that had no sides, only power and those desperate to hold it. But he didn't belong to any queen. Not yet. And if they wanted his loyalty, they'd have to fight harder than that. The twin alien girls led him through a cracked tunnel that ran beneath the desert floor. The heat shifted into a damp, cold air as glowing vines lit the path ahead. His grip never loosened on the broken blade he'd taken from the fight. They spoke little, only sharing looks between themselves as if silently agreeing on what came next. The tunnel opened into a vast underground temple built from bones and black glass. It pulsed with ancient energy, not technology but something more primal. In the center stood a stone throne, and on it sat a woman with deep green skin, long dreadlocks and golden eyes that gleamed with power. Zarian, queen of the Smolder Fang Syndicate, didn't rise to greet him. She tilted her head, examining the human like a rare beast. "You killed my hunters," she said calmly. "Good, they were weak." Her fingers just tapped against her throne arm as she added, "But you're not here because of them. You're here because I want something only a deathworlder can survive." The mercenary stayed silent. He had dealt with warlords before. They always wore crowns of fear and cloaks of Liz. He studied her, not impressed by her throne or her beauty, but by her stillness. She had the eyes of someone who had ruled through more than words. She raised a hand, and the red-skinned girl, Velkara's scout, stepped forward. "I know you met her too," Zarian said. "You've caught both our eyes. You've done what no man has, but this isn't about love or power. It's about survival." Her voice dropped lower as she continued. "The galaxy's most dangerous vault is about to open, and I want you to lead the raid." His jaw clenched as he processed her offer. A vault raid meant ancient weapons, war tech, maybe even alien gods. Things that could shift power between empires overnight. Things people would kill for. Things that might be better left buried. She saw the hesitation in his eyes. "Velkara will make her offer soon too," Zarian said, smirking. "She promised blood and fire. I offer control, leadership, a seat beside me, not beneath me. Choose me and you won't just survive this galaxy. You'll shape it." Before he could answer, an alarm blared through the temple. The walls shimmered as a projection formed in the air above. A new fleet had arrived in orbit, neither Emberblade nor Smolderfang. The ships were black and gold, bearing the mark of the Galactic Syndicate's High Tribunal. Zarian stood slowly. "So they finally came," she whispered. "They want to end us both before we get stronger, before you decide." Her golden eyes locked on his. "We'll talk later. For now you'll fight beside me. Not for loyalty. For survival." The temple transformed instantly into a war room. Lights flared, warriors emerged from hidden halls, and weapons unfolded from stone walls. The mercenary didn't ask questions. He grabbed a plasma rifle from a rack and took position by the main gate. He knew the rhythm of war better than any song. Explosions above shook the ceiling. The Syndicate's elite enforcers dropped in fast, clad in armor that absorbed light and movement. But this wasn't their home. This was a deathworlder's arena. He moved like water through fire, covering Zarian's flanks as her warriors struck. From the shadows, one enforcer lunged at him with twin energy blades. He dodged, slammed his rifle stock into the attacker's jaw, and disarmed him with a twist. Another came at him from behind, but found only smoke. By the time he turned, the human had already vanished and struck him down with one clean shot. Zarian watched as he fought without hesitation. Her warriors faltered, but he didn't. She whispered to her second in command, "He doesn't fear pain. He doesn't crave power. He only knows how to survive." Her voice held something rare respect. The battle ended as fast as it began. Bodies littered the ground, and the last ship retreated into the clouds. The mercenary stood over a fallen captain, blade dripping, breath steady. Around him, silence returned. Not peace, but a pause before the next move. Zarian stepped beside him and laid her hand on his shoulder. "You've earned your place," she said. "But remember, Velkara will come soon. And she won't ask. She take." The desert night turned violent again. Just hours after the battle beneath Zarian's temple, a crimson fire split the sky. Another dropship tore through the clouds, burning with plasma and pride. The ground shook before it. Even touched down. Everyone inside the temple knew who it was. Queen Velkara didn't wait to be announced. She walked straight through the gate as if she owned it. Her armor gleamed red like fresh blood, and her long crimson hair moved behind her like fire given shape. She carried no visible weapon, but none dared stand in her path. Zarian watched from above, lips pressed tight, eyes unreadable. The mercenary stood beside her, holding the same broken blade he'd used since the desert. Velkar's boots echoed with each step until she stood before them both, silent and unafraid. "You wasted no time," Zarian said coolly. Her fingers gripped the armrest of her throne, but her voice remained calm. The Syndicate couldn't stop us, so you came to. Try your own hand, or are you here for something else? Velkara didn't look at her. Her gaze locked onto the human. I came for him, she said. I don't need words to convince him. I need only show him the truth. Her voice held fire, but it wasn't anger. It was something deeper, conviction. She walked past Zarian like she didn't exist and stopped. Inches from the mercenary. She studied him with the focus of a queen who had watched empires burn. Then she said, You don't belong in someone else's cage. I've seen men like you. You're not a follower. You're a force. Zarian stood then, descending the stairs slowly. Her guards moved, but she raised a hand to stop them. She wasn't here to start a war, not yet. So this is how you court now? With riddles and heat. She asked her. Tone sharp but still holding back, Velkara turned slightly. You tried to impress him with shadows and words. I'm not here to impress. I'm here to claim. She looked back to the mercenary and added, Come with me. Not as a servant. As my equal. Fight with me, not beneath me. Burn the galaxy beside me. The mercenary reigned still. He had seen politics dressed as passion before. He had seen wars start with less than a promise. But both queens had something the others didn't. They respected his strength, not his weakness. And neither one begged. Before he could speak, alarms once again rang out through the ancient temple. A third party had entered orbit. This time, it was not a queen or a syndicate. It was a bounty fleet neutral, fast and dangerous. Mercenaries paid by the highest bidder. Zarian cursed under her breath and ordered her scouts to the perimeter. Velkara's hand went to her side, pulling out a sleek crimson blade made of heated crystal. They're not here for us, she said. They're here to erase him before we make our move. The human turned without a word and headed toward the armory. He didn't belong to either of them yet, but he wouldn't run. He was done running. If the galaxy wanted to play its games, he would play back harder. And he would play to win. Velkara followed him with a nod of approval. Zarian remained for a moment longer, then gave chase. For now the war paused. Not between queens, but between them and the outsiders. The mercenary was no longer just a target. He was the reason stars shifted. They reached the outer wall just as plasma blasts lit the night. Bounty hunters descended on cables, wearing glowing helmets and stealth armor. They moved like shadows, but their aim was loud and clear. They were here to take a head, not make a deal. The mercenary leapt into the battle without hesitation. He moved like a ghost through the fire, cutting, dodging, striking. One bounty hunter tried to grapple him, but his blade found the gap in their chest. Plate. Another fired from above, but the queen's blade caught the bolt mid-air. Zarian's warriors joined next, turning the battle into chaos. Velkara sliced through two attackers with clean, practiced strikes. She moved like a dancer of war, every motion sharp and final. Together, the three of them formed a storm the bounty fleet didn't expect. By the time dawn approached, the bodies were gone and the sand was still. Smoke curled into the sky as the mercenary stood between two queens, breathing hard, covered in cuts, but still standing. Velkara looked at him and simply said, Now you see what we face. This is just the beginning. The fortress walls still smoldered from the bounty fleet's failed assault. Inside, the air was thick with sweat and smoke. The mercenary sat alone on the edge of the outer platform, staring at the rising twin suns. His body ached, but his mind was sharper than ever. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was being hunted, studied, and chosen. Behind him, footsteps echoed softly. Velkara approached first, her red armor reflecting the early light. You could have died yesterday, she said without emotion. Most do when bounty fleets drop from orbit. But you didn't. You kept moving. You always do. Zarian stood across from her, leaning against a broken column with arms folded. "He's not a pawn," she said, her golden eyes narrowing. "Don't. Talk to him like he is. He's earned more than that. He's not just strong, he's dangerous. Even to us." The mercenary looked at them both. Two queens from opposite ends of the galaxy, both hardened by war and blood, now speaking to him like he was the one holding the throne. He hadn't asked for this. But the universe rarely asked for permission. Volkara took a step closer and dropped a glowing device in front of him. It projected a 3D map showing a massive structure buried beneath a blacked-out region of space. "This is the vault," she said. "The one we told you about. No fleet can survive its orbit. No AI can unlock its gate, but you can. Because your DNA matches the vault's guardian logs." Zarian tossed another item beside it, a shard of ancient alloy, glowing faintly blue. "And this is what's inside," she added. "Technology that can shift the balance of every syndicate, every throne, every planet. That's why they sent bounty fleets. They know if we get inside, we win everything." The mercenary stood up slowly, eyes never leaving the map. "You want me to lead the mission," he said plainly. "You want me to walk into that storm and open something that wasn't meant to be opened. And if I say no?" Volkara smiled. "You won't," she said confidently, "because I've watched you. You don't run from chaos, you run toward it. Not for glory, for meaning. You want to know why the universe keeps pushing you into the fire. Maybe this is the answer," Zarian added with a colder tone. "And if you don't, someone else will. Someone who doesn't care who burns as long as they sit on top afterward. That's not you. You're not cruel. But you are necessary." He took both items, the shard and the map, and placed them in his belt pouch. He didn't speak. He didn't nod. But his silence was agreement. Both queens knew it. He didn't choose one of them. He chose the mission. Preparations began immediately. The Vault planet, codenamed Zeros Prime, was known to very few. Its atmosphere was unstable. Storms raged for weeks. No technology could survive without constant repair. But beneath that chaos was something ancient. Something alien. The mercenary suited up in hybrid gear, crafted from both queens' tech. Volkara's armor plating, reinforced with Zarian's energy shielding. He looked like a soldier forged from two empires. Neither queen objected. They wanted him alive more than they wanted to fight each other. As the ship launched, the cockpit filled with quiet tension. Volkara sat at the controls, focused and calm. Zarian stood behind, arms crossed, calculating every movement. The mercenary stood in the center, staring out at the storm-filled planet below. It was time to descend. Zeros Prime greeted them with fury. Lightning cracked the skies in spirals. The ship shook violently as it passed through the upper atmosphere. Fire streaked across the windows. But the human didn't flinch. Not once. He had seen worse. Earth had raised him harder than this. They landed on a ridge above a glowing crater. In the center was a black pyramid, hovering slightly above the ground. Energy pulsed beneath it like a heartbeat. It didn't belong to any known race. It was older than records. And now it was awake. The mercenary stepped out first. The ground beneath his boots sparked. The pyramid responded to his presence. Doors formed where there were none. The structure began to shift and change. The vault was recognizing him. He looked back at the queens once and said nothing. Then he entered the vault alone. Asterisk. The air inside the vault was thick and buzzing. Every step the mercenary took caused the floor to light up in a soft electric blue. The walls around him weren't made of stone or metal. They moved like a living thing, shifting slightly as if watching him pass. His breath stayed steady. His hands never left his weapon. He knew this place was alive in some way. It wasn't built. It was grown. But not by humans. Not by any known alien race either. This place was older than language, older than fear. Symbols began to appear along the walls as he walked deeper. They shimmered briefly, then faded. They seemed to react to his presence, showing him glimpses of long-dead civilizations. He saw flashes of war, of planets dying, of queens begging gods for help. He passed a chamber filled with floating orbs. Each one spun slowly, glowing with energy. Inside them were memories not his own. He reached out and touched one. Instantly, his mind was pulled into a vision, a battlefield. An alien king falling. A voice whispering about the one who survives the chaos. He pulled back and staggered. The orb faded. His heart pounded harder now, not from fear, but from something else. Recognition. The vault didn't just accept him. It had been waiting for him, long before he was born. Maybe before Earth even rose. He entered a new room. This one was dark. Cold wind swirled through it. In the center was a single pedestal. On it lay a weapon, not shaped like a gun. Not like a blade, something between both. It was glowing faintly, humming with restrained force. He stepped closer. The weapon shifted, reshaping to match the design of his gear. It knew him. It was not just a tool. It was bonded to him. When he touched it, his armor surged with energy. His mind cleared. Every wound he had taken in the last days suddenly felt distant. Voices echoed through the chamber, not outside. In his mind, they spoke in broken patterns. Words from lost tongues. Yet he understood the meaning. Bearer of ruin. Shaper of balance. Not king, not pawn. Catalyst. Outside the vault, the queens waited with growing impatience. Velkara paced near the ship, her fists clenched. Zarian stood still, watching the sky. Something was wrong. The clouds had stopped moving. The air had gone still. The world was holding its breath. Then the ground began to glow. Lines of blue light spread from the pyramid's base outward like veins. The energy reached the cliff edge, then stopped. Velkara turned to Zarian, her voice low. It chose him. Whatever's inside it belongs to him now. Zarian didn't reply. Her thoughts were sharp. This changed everything. The vault wasn't just a weapon. It was a message. The galaxy was shifting. And the human was no longer just a survivor. He was a symbol now. One that others would try to control or destroy. Inside the vault, the mercenary opened his eyes. The weapon floated beside him now, loyal without command. The walls around him began to close slowly, sealing behind him as he returned to the entrance. The vault had given him what he needed. And now it would sleep again. He stepped out into the light. The storm above had vanished. The sky was clear for the first time since his arrival. The queens looked up at him. Neither spoke. They could feel the change. Not in the air, but in him. He didn't smile. He didn't pose. He walked past them both and stood at the edge of the cliff. Below, the valley glowed with power. The galaxy would come for him now. Not because of his past, but because of what he carried. Velkara stepped forward. "Do you know what you've done?" she asked. Her voice was soft now, not angry, not fearful. Just real. He looked at her with steady eyes. "I survived again." The weapon hovered just inches from the mercenary's back as he moved down the ridge. It followed like a silent guardian, pulsing with soft blue energy. Every step he took made the air around him vibrate. The queens followed behind him but kept their distance. Even they were unsure of what he had become. The storm that once ruled Zero's Prime was gone. The planet was now silent, but silence never meant safety. Far beyond the system, warships were already changing course. The bounty fleets. Failure had been reported. The syndicate would respond with greater force. Zarian was the first to speak. "We must return," she said. "Now that you carry what's inside, we're targets, and not just from enemies. Even our allies will question us." They'll fear you, and fear brings betrayal. Valkyra didn't argue. She scanned the horizon, eyes sharp and alert. She's right, she admitted. But you should know once we leave this planet, there's no going back to hiding. You've changed the game. They will come for you, some to kill, others to worship. The mercenary didn't reply. He stepped into the ship without hesitation. The weapon followed him inside, resting at his side when he sat. It hadn't spoken since the vault. It didn't need to. He could feel its purpose through every breath he took. As the ship lifted off, the surface of Zeros Prime pulsed one last time. The vault sealed itself completely. It vanished beneath the ground as if it had never existed. The planet returned to silence, but a signal had already been sent across the stars. Inside the ship, Zarian activated the comms console. "We'll need to split our fleet," she said. "Half should act as a decoy. The rest will escort us to neutral space. If they track our drive trail, we won't make it," Valkyra added. "I've already ordered my Ember Blades to scatter. They'll feed false data into syndicate channels. It'll buy us time, but not much. We need to plan fast." The mercenary stood and looked at them both. "You brought me into this war," he said quietly. "Now I carry the one thing everyone wants, so tell me what happens when they send their armies." Zarian met his eyes with confidence. "Then we remind them why they feared us. We burn their ships and bury their names." Valkyra smirked and nodded. "And if they send gods, we kill those too." The weapon pulsed once beside him, as if agreeing. It wasn't just a key or tool. It was a challenge. And he accepted it without question. He had never been chosen before. But now the galaxy itself was watching him. Suddenly, the ship's warning alarms blared. Enemy ships had entered the sector. 3 syndicate dreadnoughts and several interceptors were converging fast. There was no escape unless they acted now. Zarian rushed to the control deck. "They must have tracked the vault's energy surge. They don't care if we crash or fight. They'll reduce this whole system to ash just to stop us." Valkyra took the pilot's seat and pulled the ship into a sharp dive. "Hold tight," she said. "I'm done running from these cowards." The mercenary locked his gear in place and moved toward the side hatch. He looked out at the growing enemy formation. His jaw tightened. His instincts screamed for war. He didn't need a plan. He needed a chance to strike. He opened the hatch. The air roared around him. Then he leapt. The queens shouted after him, but he was already gone, free-falling toward the largest enemy ship. The weapon followed, spinning beside him like a living thing. Below, the dreadnought's shields flared red as they detected incoming heat. He crashed onto the deck with the force of a meteor. Metal bent under his feet. Enemy soldiers swarmed from all sides, aiming plasma rifles, but they were too slow. The weapon unleashed a pulse of blue energy that disabled their guns instantly. He moved like a force of nature. One punch shattered helmets. One swing of the weapon cut through armor. The ship's core shook under the pressure. Alarms screamed across the vessel. The crew tried to retreat, but he was already at the reactor door. He planted the weapon into the reactor console. A surge of light erupted. Not an explosion, but a shutdown. The ship went dark. Systems failed. Gravity reversed. The dreadnought was dead before it could fire a single shot. From above, the queens watched the entire thing unfold in silence. Then they saw him rise through the wreckage again, covered in smoke and sparks, still standing. Asterisk. The remains of the syndicate dreadnought floated lifeless in orbit. Smoke drifted from broken hulls and melted weapons. The mercenary stood on its upper deck, looking down at the galaxy he had just shaken. He was no longer just a survivor. He was now the spark that could start or stop a war. Zarian's voice echoed through his cum. "You need extraction. Another ship is on its way, but you don't have much time. Syndicate reinforcements will arrive within the hour." Velcura's voice followed. We need to move. This is no longer a game between queens. This is the start of something much bigger. You've made enemies in places where kings whisper in shadows. He didn't respond at first. He turned his head toward the drifting field of wreckage. The bodies of those who tried to kill him floated silently, frozen by space. And yet he felt no joy in their defeat. Just a quiet resolve that something was still unfinished. When the ship arrived, he stepped inside without a word. The queens waited inside the war room, staring at each other but saying nothing. The silence was heavy. Both knew the time for diplomacy was over. Only action remained. Velcura placed her hand on the table and activated a projection. It showed the central core of the syndicate's main command hub. They know about the vault. They know about the weapon. They will not stop unless we erase their seat of power completely. Zarian tapped another control and zoomed into a part of the map marked with red warnings. We can't just fight them head-on. Their station is surrounded by defensive satellites and auto-targeting fleets. But with you, we might have a way through their shields. The mercenary studied the map. The odds were impossible. But so had every fight he'd survived until now. He wasn't interested in saving empires or ruling them. He just wanted to end the chase. To silence the hunters once and for all. He nodded once and spoke clearly. We strike their command. We cut off their voice. We show them that fear no longer belongs to them. The plan began within the hour. A combined fleet of Ember Blades and Smolder Fang ships jumped into position. Hundreds of fighters broke formation and split into decoys, drawing fire from enemy sensors. The Queen stood side by side in the command bay, watching their crews move like one mind. In the shadows of the outer moons, the mercenary stealth ship passed undetected. He moved toward the command hub with the weapon strapped to his back. His heart was steady. His thoughts were focused. He had come too far to doubt now. Inside the station, alarms began to blare. But too late. He broke through their first barrier, disabling shield nodes with precision. Guards rushed at him in waves, but none slowed him down. He didn't fight with rage. He fought with purpose. He reached the central core and locked the weapon into the heart of their system. Lights flickered. Sirens stopped. A silence fell across the entire station. Then the weapon pulsed once more and released a wave of energy so strong that the station's power grid collapsed instantly. Outside, the Syndicate fleet lost all connection to their command. Confusion spread like wildfire. Queen Zarian gave the order first. Attack now while they're blind, Velcura followed. Show them what fear feels like. The combined forces struck with everything they had. Lasers, torpedoes, and charged plasma tore through enemy cruisers. The Syndicate's pride was turned to ash. Their command crumbled. And with it, the chains they held over a dozen systems snapped. Inside the ruined station, the mercenary walked. Through smoke and sparks. He passed shattered pillars and crushed helmets. The weapon returned to his hand, still glowing. The Queens landed moments later, stepping over debris to stand before him. Velcura spoke first. It's over. You did. We did it. The Syndicate won't rise again, Zarian added. You've changed the galaxy. You could lead it if you wanted. Take a throne. Take us both. Choose power. The mercenary looked at them both. His voice was calm. I didn't do this to rule. I did it so no one else could chase me. Or anyone like me. He turned and walked away. They didn't stop him, and the galaxy whispered his name as legend.